He has narrowed it down to these two. Over the last 5 years, the Twins and the Athletics have emerged as the teams to beat for the American League crown. Today, Oakland brings the long ball to the Metrodome, where Puckett and company hope to derail the A's early season run. CBS Sports presents Major League Baseball. Today from the Metrodome in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Minnesota Twins play host to the Oakland Athletics. It's time for Baseball 92. And welcome everyone to the Metrodome, home of the Twins, champions of Major League Baseball in 2 of the last 5 seasons.
One of these trophies isn't tarnished. As a matter of fact, the Twins world champions a year ago.
Sean McDonough along with Tim McCarver, nice to have you with us for a matchup of 2 teams that have combined to win the last 5 American League pennants and 3 of the last 5 world championships. But Tim, some are saying this is the last hurrah for Oakland.
Yeah, we talked about the trophy not being tarnished. I don't know whether the same could be said for the Oakland Athletics. 14 players on the last years of their contracts, the oldest team in baseball, the second oldest pitching staff. They've got to do it this year. Otherwise, you're going to see a lot of new faces next year.
Meanwhile, the Twins like their chances for repeating. General manager Andy MacPhail says this is the best Minnesota team that has come north since 1987. These 2 teams played a thriller last night in Game 1 of this series. Let's take a look at the highlights. John Smiley was the starting pitcher for Minnesota. He's in trouble in the first inning. The bases loaded with 2 outs, and Willie Wilson lined a double into right center field. It cleared the bases as Oakland took a 3-0 lead. On to the top of the 3rd with Oakland ahead 4-0. And Mark McGwire rips his Major League leading 9th home run of the season. It's 5-0 Athletics. The Twins chipping away. They're within 5-3 in the 5th inning. 1 out and 2 runners on. Scott Leyes belted his 3rd hit of the night, a triple to the gap in right center. Leyes went 3 for 4. Herbeck and Munoz scored. The game was tied at 5. It stayed that way until the 10th. Lance Blankenship at the plate in the top of the 10th against reliever Gary Wayne. He hits a line drive down the left field line that is caught. Shane Mack called it one of the greatest catches of his career. Then in the bottom of the 10th, with the bases loaded and nobody out, Brian Harper lifts a fly ball to right, deep enough to score Jarvis Brown for the winning run. The Twins win in 10, 6-5. Now let's look at the rest of last night's scores around Major League Baseball. Coming up next, Tim McCarver visits with the Major League's leader in home runs, Oakland slugger Mark McGwire, right after this.
CBS Sports presents Baseball 92. Brought to you by Shop Vac Wet Dry Vacuums. If you own a house, you gotta own a Shop Vac. And by Scope, the best thing, first thing in the morning.
Welcome back to the Metrodome in Minneapolis for the latest chapter in what has become an intense rivalry in recent years, Oakland and Minnesota. The starting pitchers this afternoon for Oakland, Joe Slusarski, the 25-year-old right-hander with a record of 1-0. He'll be opposed by Kevin Tapani, a 16-game winner a year ago. He's 1-1 in 92. And one of the challenges facing Tapani today is Mark McGwire. Earlier, Tim McCarver spoke with the Oakland slugger.
All right, Sean, thank you very much. I'll tell you, when players are going well, one of the worst things they want to do is talk about their success. Yeah. Now, with that in mind, Mark, can you tell us what is different starting out this year compared to last year?
Well, it's really simple. I mean, I'm just doing things I'm capable of doing. I've had success in the league for 4 years, and last year, yes, I did have probably the worst season ever. And I'm reacting to things instead of trying to force to do things, and it's really that simple.
Fans often hear that players stay within themselves. Is that what you're doing, and what does it mean?
I was trying everything, and I got in such a hole I couldn't dig out. And basically at the end of the season last year, I threw last year in the door. I double locked it. I put gasoline and turned a match and put it on fire. And I was in Las Vegas, and I wasn't planning on watching the World Series, and I was watching the World Series, and it lit a fire in me again, and it really made me love the game of baseball again. Last year I did not like the game. I don't think anybody that had a year like I did could love the game. And it really turned me around. I mean, I worked harder than ever in the off season. I put on 20 pounds. I feel strong. I feel great mentally and physically, and it sort of showed up in the first part of the year.
The last thing, there was that fan that was talking about yelling at you, go back to your pigeon coach. Is that a true story?
Yeah. Last year was like last month of the season, some guy was yelling at me above our dugout, and I couldn't understand what he was saying. And then after the game, we walked by the fans into our dugout, and he's going, go back to your pigeon toed, go back to your pigeon toed. And I started thinking about it, and basically that's what I did. I went back to my old way of hitting, and I'm doing the things I'm capable of doing.
While Mark McGwire has been the talk of the American League, the major focus of attention in the minor leagues these days is 23-year-old Curtis Pride, a talented outfielder for the AA Binghamton Mets. He's quick and focused. But what sets him apart from his peers in the minors is the obstacle he has overcome. You see, Curtis Pride is deaf. He has never heard the crack of the bat or the cheers of the crowd, but Curtis Pride continues his major league quest.
If somebody wouldn't have told me, I wouldn't have known that he had a handicap, because he fits right in and does everything above and beyond what the other ball players do.
I'm capable of doing anything I wanted to do, as long as I don't let my disability get in my way.
Pride's most cherished moment may have come in Binghamton's first game of the year.
He didn't start that night, and I used him in the 8th inning to pinch hit. And we were down by a run late in the game. Get out, baby. Curtis has an awful lot of God-given talent, and he's doing everything that he has with that talent to be the best ball player that he can possibly be. So, you know, maybe someday his dream will come true, you know, to make it to the major leagues.
CBS Sports coverage of Major League Baseball will return after a word from your local station. A few snowflakes fell in the Twin Cities this morning, but inside the climate-controlled Metrodome, the Twins and Athletics are ready to meet in Game 2 of a 3-game series. As CBS Sports presents Major League Baseball. Despite their loss in Game 1 of this series last night, Oakland is still in first place in the AL West. Minnesota is 3.5 out. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Sean McDonough along with Tim McCarver. It's nice to have you with us. When the Minnesota Twins won their World Championships in 1987 and 1991, they did so by winning all 4 of their home games. But the Dome is not just a home field advantage in the postseason for the Twins.
Well, since the Metrodome opened, as a matter of fact, the Minnesota Twins with the best home field advantage in all of baseball. And you've heard about the House of Horrors. Well, it's been a dome of horrors for the Oakland Athletics. Since 1984, they've won 17 while losing 38, a little more than 2 out of every 3 games. And last night, no exception. They had a 5-run lead and ended up losing 6-5.
And Minnesota has won 5 of the last 6 between these two played here in the Dome. Joe Slusarski and Kevin Tapani, the starting pitchers today, will have the first pitch of the ball game right after this.
CBS Sports presents Major League Baseball. Today's game is brought to you by Oldsmobile, the power of intelligent engineering. Advil, advanced medicine for pain. And by Kingsford, for long-burning charcoal that lights faster than any other. Start with the best. Kingsford, what the pros use.
We're just about ready to go here at the Metrodome in Minneapolis, and on the mound today for the Twins is 28-year-old right-hander Kevin Tapani. Tapani with a record of 1-1. And here is the Oakland lineup he will face this afternoon. Ricky Henderson in left field. Carney Lansford, the third baseman. Jose Canseco in right field. The cleanup hitter is Harold Baines, the DH. Mark McGwire at first base. Terry Steinbach, the catcher. Willie Wilson in center field. Jerry Brown, the second baseman. And Mike Bordick, the shortstop, bats ninth. Big crowd on hand, and Ricky Henderson digs in as the ball game is about to get underway. Henderson, Lansford, and Canseco against Tapani in the first. Ricky comes in at 2:15. First pitch of the game, ripped but foul, and well back into the stands and left.
Ricky Henderson 0 for 10 against Kevin Tapani, and probably guessing fastball. He got it, pulls it foul.
Larry McCoy behind the plate. Ted Hendry at first. Chuck Merriweather at second. Jim Evans calls the plays at third. Fastball just low, apparently. And a count of 1 ball and 1 strike. Ricky Henderson just 2 for his last 15. Outside and low. Tapani's been close with the last 2 pitches. Both of them called balls. 2-1 the count. Out of play and right. 2-2.
Kevin Tapani 2-0 last April, and then he went through a miserable May. He lost 2/3 of his games that he lost all of last year in May. He was 0-6 in May, and as you said earlier, he finished the year 16-9. 1-1 in the World Series, winning game 2 of the series against Atlanta and losing game 5.
To center field, and that falls in front of Kirby Puckett for a base hit.
On either side of Kirby Puckett for the Minnesota Twins, Shane Mack in left field. A terrific play last night. Kirby Puckett, a Gold Glove winner in center. Pedro Munoz, the right fielder. First baseman Gene Larkin. At second base, spelling Chuck Knobloch, last year's Rookie of the Year, is Donnie Hill. Greg Gagne, the shortstop. Scott Leyes at third. Brian Harper behind the plate. Interesting matchup with Harper and Henderson here.
Henderson needs 2 stolen bases for 1,000 for his career, and Harper has had trouble throwing out runners.
Harper has caught only 7 of 27 this year, and that is one of the knocks on Brian Harper. He's a terrific offensive catcher, batting over .290 3 years in a row, but a tough time throwing. There's a lot of weapons that the Athletics can do with Lansford batting second. He's a contact batter. Only 1 strikeout in his 64 at bats thus far this year. So he can hit behind Henderson. It can be a straight steal. A lot of things Tony La Russa can do in this situation.
998 for his career for Ricky. Only 4 of them this year. He's been caught 3 times. He is running. Lansford sends it to the right side, a base hit. Past Donnie Hill, who had moved to cover. Henderson into third. And the Athletics threaten with nobody out in the first. Carney Lansford now 9 for his last 18, and the base hit sent Henderson to third.
And the Minnesota Twins had the wrong guy covering. The fastball was inside, but look how Lansford, seeing that, pushing the ball the other way. That was a fastball inside. He put an inside-out swing on it. And now the Athletics are threatening early like they did in last night's game, scoring 3 in the first inning.
Jose Canseco hitting .284, 6 homers, and he has driven in 16. He's tied for third in the league with Rob Deere with those 6 home runs. Cecil Fielder has 7, and Mark McGwire leads the American League with 9. Double play ball to short. They turn it 6-4-3, but Henderson scores the game's first run. No RBI for Canseco as a result of the double play.
Number 3, the designated hitter, Harold Baines.
Now Harold Baines, the DH, hitting .217 with just 2 runs batted in. Out of play and left. So that was a trade Kevin Tapani would gladly make, take the 2 outs and give up the 1 run.
That's why they had the infield in double play position. But again, the hit and run, even with the double play, that sent Henderson to third, allowing him to score.
Baines again sends it into the stands and left. No balls and 2 strikes the count. 1-0 Oakland, just underway in the top of the first, and delighted to have you with us from the Metrodome. Baines got off to an excellent start. He was 9 for his first 26. That's a .346 average. Now he's 4 for his last 34 and make it 35 as he strikes out. 1 run for Oakland off Kevin Tapani, who just recorded his first strikeout. We'll be back in a moment. One nothing Oakland as we go to the bottom of the first, and for the Athletics, it's 25-year-old right-hander Joe Slutsarski on the mound.
Rather inauspicious beginning. You see his name spelled S-L-U-S-A-R-S-K-I. Well, he beat the Minnesota Twins last year, and that second S was a Z and not an S.
I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But first, the lineup for the Minnesota Twins. Shane Mack leading off in the left. Donnie Hill for Chuck Knobloch at second. Kirby Puckett, the center fielder. Ken Urbeck, the DH. He got back into action last night. Brian Harper, the catcher. Pedro Munoz, the right fielder. Gene Larkin at first. Scott Leyes, the third baseman. And Greg Gagne, the shortstop, hits ninth. First pitch from Slutsarski. The strike called to Shane Mack. As you saw in the highlights, he was one of the heroes of last night's 10 innings 6-5 Minnesota win. He made a great catch on a ball hit down the left field line by Lance Blankenship. The 1-1 pitch, chopped foul down to Ron Gardenhire in the third base coach's box. The former New York Met infielder in his second season as third base coach for the Twins. And across the way, first base coach Wayne Terwilliger, still throwing batting practice just about every day at age 67.
Shane Mack, a very impressive start, and what makes it more impressive, he was beamed in the opening game against the Milwaukee Brewers by Mike Fetters. He spent the night in the hospital and has come back to respond with a .355 average.
Down to Lansford at third. 1 out. We're in the bottom of the first. The Athletics lead 1-0.
Defensively for Oakland, Ricky Henderson in left field, the fleet Willie Wilson in center, Jose Canseco in right field, Mark McGuire, the first baseman, Jerry Brown, the governor. You may remember him with his days in Cleveland. He'll be the second baseman. Mike Bordick at shortstop. Carney Lansford over at third. Terry Steinbach just off the disabled list. He had a broken wrist the third game of the season. He's been on the DL ever since, so his first game back.
Now Donnie Hill, appearing in his 5th game of the year. He's been bothered by a sore back. Joined the Twins this season as a utility infielder. And he's likely to see more time now that Mike Pagliarulo has gone on the disabled list with a fractured bone in his right hand.
In there for Chuck Knobloch this afternoon. Knobloch nursing a strained hamstring.
That's one of the reasons Knobloch isn't in there. Tom Kelly told us before the game he always gets a little bit worried when middle infielders hit a home run the night before. Generally means they go out and try to do it again the next day, and that results in an offer. Tom said every time Knobloch hit a home run last year, he looked at the box score the next day. It was 0 for 3, 0 for 4. So it's a combination of reasons that has Knobloch out of the lineup today. Lansford again, 2 outs.
Third, number 34, the center fielder,
the most popular athlete in Minnesota sports history, Kirby Puckett, hitting .294. Tip into the mid of Steinbach. 1 strike on Puckett.
And because he is such a good player and because he's so popular, a lot of people think, including us, that there is no way that Kirby Puckett will be leaving after this year. This is the walk year for Kirby Puckett, but Minnesota almost has to sign him.
The thought was when Minnesota was dealing with Jack Morris, the reason that they chose not to get into the same price range as the Toronto Blue Jays so that they could save money to keep Kirby Puckett around. He is the man who puts the fans in the seats here at the Metrodome, and they're talking about perhaps as much as $6 million a year in the next contract for Kirby.
He got the fans out of their seats last year in Game 6 of the World Series. The home run off Charlie Leibrandt in the bottom of the 10th inning. That sent it to 7, and then that remarkable game, Game 7, when Minnesota won it on a pinch hit by Gene Larkin. And that's one of the results of their World Championship.
2 outs, nobody on. We're in the bottom of the first. 1-0 Oakland. Slusarski with the 1-2. Pop foul and into the stands, first base side. Off-speed pitch low, 2-2 on Puckett. The Twins 7-9, but bear in mind they started last season 2-9. Went on to win their division by 8 games. So there's not a lot of panic, at least not yet, here in the Twin Cities. It has been an impressive start for Tony La Russa and Oakland.
Not a lot of panic on the Oakland side either. Tony La Russa just signing an extension to his contract that makes him the highest paid manager in Major League Baseball.
Well hit to right. Canseco now a couple of steps in. That's all for the Twins as they go in order in the first. After 1-0 Oakland.
You're watching CBS Sports coverage of Major League Baseball.
1-0 Oakland as the Athletics get ready to hit in the second against Kevin Tapani. Batters 5, 6, and 7 coming up for Oakland. Mark McGwire to lead off, then Terry Steinbach and Willie Wilson. McGwire, the Major League leader in home runs with 9. Including a home run last night.
Only 2 shy of the Major League record. Willie Stargell, Mike Schmidt, Greg Nettles had 11 home runs in the month of April.
What a difference a year has made for Mark McGwire. Last season he had 201, struck out 116 times, once every 4 times at bat. He did hit 22 homers, but he's on a pace to do much better than that this year. Leading fielder by 2, and his teammate Canseco and Rob Deere by 3. The 2 others with 5, Mel Hall and Mickey Tettleton. 3-1 the count now on McGwire.
McGuire with 49 home runs his rookie season, and consider the fact that he only scored 62 runs last year. So he scored 49 home runs himself via the home run route his rookie season, only 13 more than that last year. He is off to a torrid start this year. Minor adjustments in his hitting style, and as you heard, having more fun playing the game.
Had some off-the-field problems that plagued him last year. Those are a thing of the past, as is McGuire's at bat as he draws a walk. The first issued by Kevin Tapani this afternoon. Walks very rare coming from the right arm of Kevin Tapani.
Matter of fact, he walked 4 in one game earlier this year against the Seattle Mariners. That's the only time he's walked more than 3 in 70 starts in his major league career.
The lead man on for the second straight inning for Oakland. McGuire at first for Terry Steinbach. Down to first, fair ball. Larkin appeared to get tangled up with McGuire as that went to the corner. McGuire to third, Steinbach into second with a double, and here come the Athletics again.
You don't know who hindered whom down at first base. You don't know whether it was McGuire or Larkin. Did McGuire keep Larkin from getting to the ball, or did Larkin get in the way of McGuire? Looked like McGuire had to wait and allow the ball to go through. He goes to third easily, and Terry Steinbach, that's the way to break back in with a double on one pitch.
Looked like Larkin had no problem with McGuire. It was just a matter of the ball being too well struck. McGuire at third, Steinbach at second. The infield back with Willie Wilson at the plate. Strike one on Wilson. The center fielder batting .245 with 7 runs batted in. As Tim mentioned, he had a big hit in the first inning of last night's game for Oakland. The bases loaded, bases clearing double off John Smiley. Just outside, a ball and a strike on the switch hitting Wilson. Really looking down at third base coach Rene Lachemann. The ball high, 2-1. The runs batted in last night gave Willie Wilson 59 for his career against Minnesota. That's his highest RBI total against any opponent. And he's a career .318 hitter against the Twins. His second best average against any club. He's at .342 against Boston. Tapani falling behind in the count again.
Yeah, there's no thought about pitching around Wilson right here. Tapani trying to go right at him, but in the last several games he has really had a tough time finding the plate. Ideal hitting situation for Wilson.
And he ripped one right past Tapani into center field. McGuire scores. Here comes Steinbach. He scores as the throw is cut off, and it's 3-0 Oakland.
When major league hitters boil it down to knowing what's coming and then they get it, they often put the fat part of the bat on the ball. 3-1 fastball right back at the originator. And Tapani falling behind here, 3-0.
Wilson with 2 more runs batted in. He had 3 last night. Now has 9 for the season. He's at first. Still nobody out. And here's Jerry Brown up for just the second time this season for Oakland. Tapani has surrendered 4 hits already. He has walked 1 and struck out 1. The runner is going. The pitch is strike. The throw not in time. Willie Wilson has his third stolen base of the season.
Catchers encourage their middle infielders to catch the ball on the bag instead of in front of the bag. That would have been a closer play had Gagne received the throw on the bag. Fine throw by Harper. He did all he could, but Wilson just outran the ball.
Wilson in scoring position with nobody out, and a ball low to Jerry Brown. 1-1 the count. Tim mentioned Brown, best known as a member of the Cleveland Indians. They let him go in spring training. He was signed by Oakland on April 9th, spent some time in the minors, and then was called up when pitcher John Briscoe was sent to AAA. Two balls, one strike.
The one thing that Tom Kelly and pitching coach Dick Such wanted out of Tapani today, about 7 or 8 innings. They wanted him to go deep into the game. As a matter of fact, when Dick Such brought in the pitching list for Tom Kelly, based on how many innings were worked last night by the relievers, he said, let's go Tap, meaning they wanted him to go deep into the game. Well, some early problems, and even this early in the season, they have a bullpen, especially with the night game last night. They don't want to use Carl Willis. They don't want to use Gary Wayne. He pitched 2 innings last night.
Brown tried to bunt, fouled it off the catcher Harper. 2 balls and 2 strikes to count.
You'd have to think with Brown going down to talk to Latchman that was a sacrifice bunt, even though he did try to drag it and take it with him to move Wilson down to third base.
Fly ball along the line and left. Shane Mack in foul ground makes the catch for the first out of the inning.
Batting line, number 14. The shortstop, Mike Bordick.
Now Mike Bordick hitting .317. Off to a strong start as he tries to fill the void created by the departure of Mike Gallego to the Yankees, and also another injury to Walt Weiss that has him on the shelf. Didn't mean to, but he blooped it into right field. Wilson coming around to score. 4-0 Oakland.
This is that excuse me swing that Sean was talking about. That's saying you'd rather be lucky than good. Well, you'd rather be good and lucky, and that's what Bordick was on that check swing.
The RBI is his 8th of the season.
Wilson scores easily.
Bordick back to first. He's there with 1 out. We're in the second. It's 4-0 Oakland, but the way things have gone in recent years for them in this club, they might decline the lead, give the runs back. They were up 5-0 last night. Wound up losing 6-5. A ball to Ricky Henderson, who started the first inning with a single to center field, and he scored the Oakland run. The PGA Tour continues next on CBS Sports with 3rd round coverage of the Kmart Greater Greensboro Open, live from the Forest Oaks Country Club in Greensboro, North Carolina. Phil Blackmar, the leader after 2 rounds. He shot a 66 yesterday. And if you're wondering where Fred Couples is, shouldn't he be on the leaderboard? He's only 2 under.
I think it's a typo when he's not. No
typos on his bank statement. He made over $1 million already this year. but he just did make the cut at Greensboro this week. Two and one on Henderson. One out. Bordick at first. We're in the second. The Athletics lead 4-0. They have 5 hits off Tapani. It's one of the few borderline pitches that's gone Kevin Tapani's way.
The whole package right there. Power, speed, and add one more thing. He intimidates umpires. He will question any close pitch. And that could change an umpire's approach to calling pitches on him.
That could be a positive or a negative, could it not?
Well, it's been a positive in Ricky's career.
Full count with 1 out. It's quite conceivable Bordick could be on the move with the pitch. He is, as Ricky fouled it off his foot.
With that run scored in the first inning, that gives him 1,405 for his career. And he says that that's the next thing that he wants to do is break Ty Cobb's record of 2,245 runs scored. He's passed Lou Brock. He did that last April. It's going to take him a while, though, to get another 900 runs or so.
Bordick runs again. Ricky slapped it down to first. A fair ball and an out. Henderson now 1 for 2. And the Athletics have Bordick at second base with 2 outs in the second, leading 4-0. And the 7th hitter of the inning will be Carney Lansford. He singled to center his first time up.
A remarkable story. The snowmobiling accident last winter. Rehab for 10 months of last year. He traveled with the Oakland Athletics during that rehab period. And he has the same injury that Ozzie Guillen of the Chicago White Sox suffered on Tuesday night against the New York Yankees. A devastating blow to Chicago.
And Lansford's injury kept him out of all but 5 games last year. That's a hit. Bordick being waved around. Puckett's throw is not in time. Harper up and screaming in the face of Larry McCoy. Now Tom Kelly will come out to argue the play. It's 5-0 Oakland.
You may remember last year's World Series when Mark Lemke scored in Game 3. Brian Harper tagged him with his arm and not the glove. Lemke scoring the winning run for Atlanta. It appeared that Harper got the glove on Mike Bordick. We'll see. He may have, but it appeared that Bordick was on the plate by the time the glove got there. I think he tagged him, but was Bordick by him? From that angle, it looked like the tag was made before Bordick touched the plate. But the Twins don't get the call.
And fans booze. Tom Kelly has finished the argument. And Jose Canseco steps in as the 8th hitter of the inning. Five runs on 6 hits for Oakland. No action in the Minnesota bullpen as Tapani missed with ball 1 to Canseco.
Yet another angle, and that's inconclusive as to whether Harper tagged him before he got to the plate.
Either way, Larry McCoy was probably going to get an argument.
Right.
1-1 on Jose, who bounced into a 6-4-3 double play last inning. It was on that play that Ricky Henderson scored the game's first run from third. into shallow left. Gagne, great catch. The play by Gagne saved another run for Minnesota.
We talked about Carney Lansford's injury to his knee in the snowmobiling accident being the same as Ozzie Guillen on Tuesday night. Yankees and White Sox, Mel Hall the batter. Tim Raines slamming into Ozzie Guillen's right leg with the back of his head, and Guillen out for at least the season. A dreadful blow to the White Sox chances this year, and to a guy who exudes all the enthusiasm of baseball, Ozzie Guillen.
Perhaps he can draw some inspiration from the fact that Lansford has come all the way back from a very serious injury at age 35. Here's Kent Hrbek, just back from the disabled list himself. He made his first appearance of the season last night and went 0 for 2 with a couple of strikeouts, but he did walk 3 times. His injury, a dislocated left shoulder, suffered on March 15th while running the bases in spring training. And Tom Kelly is still a bit reluctant to use him at first base. Hrbek does not have any pain in that shoulder when he swings the bat. But they're fearful of a collision around the first base bag, causing more pain and perhaps an extended stay on the disabled list for Hrbek.
Yeah, that throw inside the line where a first baseman has to make a tag of the runner is the thing that Tom told us he was most afraid of. It was his left shoulder. So both managers have had to fill in with irregulars early in the year, both Tony La Russa and Tom Kelly. Gene Larkin playing most of first base in Hrbek's stead.
Kent fought that off. 2 balls, 2 strikes, the count. Hrbek, Harper, and Munoz to face Lusarski here in the second. The Twins went in order in the first. Strike 3. Hrbek caught looking at a fastball over the outside part of the plate. 1 out in the second. That's the first strikeout of the afternoon for Joe Lusarski. Now Brian Harper, the Minnesota catcher. Breaking ball for a strike to Harper at 275 with a home run, 5 runs batted in. Harper had the game-winning sacrifice fly last night in the 10th off Goose Gossage. That's well hit to left center. Wilson and Henderson, and it's Wilson making the backhand catch. Next Saturday, some of you will see Ozzie Guillen. Actually, you probably won't see Ozzie. He might be in the ballpark, but he won't be in uniform for the White Sox when they play host to the Texas Rangers. Others of you will see the Mets and the Braves from Atlanta. That's next Saturday. CBS presents Major League Baseball at 1 o'clock next Saturday afternoon. We'll be in Chicago for that matchup between Chicago and Texas. Ruben Sierra and Frank Thomas, among others. Pedro Munoz, the right fielder, hitting .304. He's come on lately. 9 hits in his last 17 at bats over the last 4 games.
Pedro Munoz's development in the minor league system of Minnesota allowed the Twins to let Dan Gladden go. Gladden signing with the Detroit Tigers, but you wonder if anybody can replace the fire and determination that Gladden brought to this ball club. Guy like Gladden, you don't look at his numbers, you look at his heart. Same with Jack Morris. Jack Morris now pitching with the Blue Jays. In that situation, however, it was a matter of the almighty dollar.
2-1 the count on Munoz. 2-2 now. Certainly a lot of the success the Twins have had over the last 5 years can be attributed to their team chemistry. They've been a very unified bunch with a tremendous amount of respect for their manager, and even though Gladden is no longer a piece of that puzzle, it appears that they still very much have that. Just inside, a full count. 2 outs and the base is empty. We're in the bottom of the second. Oakland has a 5-0 lead. The Athletics scored once in the first and 4 times in the top of this inning. Struck him out with the fastball. 2 strikeouts in the inning. The Twins go in order for the second straight inning. After 2, 5-0 Oakland. For the second straight day, the Oakland Athletics have a 5-0 lead over Minnesota. Last night they squandered that advantage as the Twins came back to post a 6-5 win in 10 innings. Middle third of the order coming up for the Athletics in the third. Harold Baines, then Mark McGwire and Terry Steinbach. Baines struck out swinging his first time up. That's the only strikeout recorded by Kevin Tapani to this point. Probably didn't hear as much about Kevin Tapani last year as we should have, given his accomplishments, but with Mr. Morris and Mr. Erickson doing what they were doing, Tapani worked in the shadows. Baines thrown out by Donnie Hill. 1 out in the Oakland third.
Somebody appreciated Kevin last year because he did get 1 vote for the Cy Young Award, finishing 7th in the Cy Young Award voting. Tapani coming to the Twins back in 1989 with Rick Aguilera, David West, Tim Drummond for Frank Viola. Viola now with the Bo Sox up in Boston.
Base hit for Mark McGwire. He continues his early season tear. He walked and scored his first time up. He's aboard now with 1 out in the Oakland third.
The catcher, Terry Steinbach.
7 hits for Oakland. One of those belongs to Terry Steinbach. He doubled into right field and scored last inning. Steinbach just off the disabled list, activated today. He had been on the DL since April 10th with a hairline fracture in his left wrist. Tony La Russa says he wasn't worried about Steinbach swinging the bat. He was more concerned about the pounding that left wrist might take when he is handling the pitches from Joe Slusarski. To the count on Steinbach. The ball low and away, 1-2. And it's really incredible that Oakland has had the kind of start it has had when you consider for most of the season they've been without Steinbach, without Walt Weiss, without Bob Welch, without Dave Henderson, without Joe Klink. Down the right field line again, another hit for Steinbach. McGwire continues to third. Oakland right back after the Twins with first and third and 1 out, and Terry Steinbach fresh off the DL is 2 for 2.
And I'm not at all surprised to see the Athletics playing this well this early in the season. They won the American League pennant 1988, 89, and 1990. They won the World Championship, sweeping the Giants in the Earthquake Series in 89, and last year finishing in 4th place. And I think there's a parallel that can be drawn. The Philadelphia Phillies back in the 70s, 76, 7, and 8, won the division. They finished 4th. 1980, they won the World Championship. The Yankees, the same thing. 76, 7, and 8, they won the division, got in the series in 77 and 78, and came back to win their division in 1980 after an off year. If you can still play, if your players aren't too old and you have that off year, you ought to keep them together. And that's what Sandy Alderson has done with the A's. They haven't made a lot of changes this year. They have, for the most part, the same people. that they had through the championship years, with the exception of a few younger pitchers that they brought along.
Willie Wilson serves it to left center. Puckett and Mack looked at each other for a moment. Finally, Puckett made the catch. Here comes McGuire. The ball hit McGuire and scoots toward the dugout. Steinbach to second on the play. It's 6-0 Oakland.
And I think McGuire epitomizes the resolve that the Athletics have shown this year so far. Ball medium deep to left center field. Mark McGuire just ahead of the throw. As a matter of fact, he arrives at the same time as the throw from Puckett and kicks the ball in the Oakland dugout. So an error, a throwing error on Kirby Puckett.
At action in the Minnesota bullpen, Bob Kipper, the left-hander, is throwing. The error to Puckett, the first in this game. 3 runs batted in for Willie Wilson today after 3 last night. Here's Jerry Brown out on a fly ball to left last inning. The Athletics have sent 16 batters to the plate to this point. 8 of them came through with a base hit. Tapani walked one of them. Pop-up handled by Donnie Hill. Apparently Terry Steinbach didn't realize that there were 2 outs as he just stood on the second base bag.
He's been out for a while.
6-0 Oakland. They've been up for a while, and we'll return to the Metrodome after this word from your local station. Joe Slusarski has pitched 2 perfect innings, and his mates have staked him to a 6-0 lead as the Twins bat in the third. Gene Larkin stands in. He'll be followed by Scott Leyes and Greg Gagne. Ball 1 to Larkin, who's done an admirable job filling in for Ken Herbeck. He started every game at first base this season for the Twins. Despite the 200 average, he leads the club in runs batted in with 11. How about Wayne Twilliger making the play on the rebound?
Quick and still picking. Not only can he throw batting practice at 67 years old, great hands. Longtime Washington Senator second baseman. Never made more than $11,000 a year.
The Twins players will tell you he is the best pepper player they have ever seen. Two balls and a strike to count. Ricky Henderson. No snatch catch that time. 1 out.
You'd think a guy that has retired 7 in a row wouldn't have an identity problem, but Joe Slusarski has. As a matter of fact, the manufacturer of his uniforms has had a tough time with his name. Last year, Slusarski right there, he received a uniform instead of the S right there, it was a Z. And then this year, he received his uniform instead of an L, it was Stusarski. I can't get his name right. There's Frank Sinchek, who was the equipment manager. He said, hey, it wasn't my fault. It was the manufacturer's fault.
Well, Frank can spell his own name. He can certainly spell Slusarski.
Frank, a John Madden look-alike. In the Bay Area, everybody mistaken Frank for John Madden. He looks a little like John, huh?
Line and caught. And Scott Leyes is the second out of the inning. We're in the third. Oakland leads 6-0. Slusarski said when he went out the first time with the Z and pitched so well, he came back this year and saw the T. He said, leave it on my uniform. But he didn't pitch as well. That was in a spring training game this year. So he said, take the T off and spell my name correctly, if you would.
What's in a name?
Well, in the case of a couple of the guys we just saw, several consonants. Greg Gagne. 8 up and 8 down to this point for the Twins. Gagne hitting .260 with 2 runs batted in. Chopped foul. 1 ball and 1 strike. Hit on the hands and fouled back. 1-2. Joe Slusarski is a native of Indianapolis. He's 6'4", 195 pounds. A second-round draft choice for Oakland back in 1988. He pitched at the University of New Orleans for 2 years and was a member of the 1988 United States Olympic team. He just missed inside. 2-2 on Gagne. Big surprise for Greg Gagne to this point this season. The number of errors he has committed, 5 to this point.
Only had 9 all of last year, and he's committed 5 in 12 games this year.
To right field, Canseco won't be able to get to it, and the Twins have their first hit. An opposite field single for Greg Gagne with 2 outs in the third. Now Shane Mack, who grounded to third his first time up. Tim, you mentioned the loss of Dan Gladden. He was the leadoff hitter the last couple of seasons for Minnesota. But Shane Mack is a similar package in that he has speed like Gladden. But Mack is even more of a home run threat, which can be intimidating coming from a leadoff hitter.
That's why he's adapted to all positions in the lineup. He batted in all 8 positions in the lineup last year. Only other guy in Major League Baseball that did it last year, Darren Jackson of the San Diego Padres. So you can bat him leadoff and use his speed. You can bat him third or fourth and use his power, or fifth. And if he's not hitting well, drop him down. Acquired in the minor league draft from San Diego by the Twins, and what an acquisition he's been.
Chop to third. Lansford has to hurry. He just did get Mack by a running step. That's all for the Twins in the third after 3 at the Metrodome. 6-0 Oakland. (6-0) Oakland. The Athletics coming up in the fourth against Kevin Tapani with batters 9, 1, and 2 in their order. Mike Bordick, then Ricky Henderson and Carney Lansford. The Athletics have scored in every inning. Bordick scored in the second. He reached on an RBI single to right. 1 of 8 Oakland hits to this point. Tapani misses low. Ball 1 on Bordick.
Bordick, 1 of 8 second basemen used by the Athletics last year. Mentioned their middle infield problems that have persisted to this year. Last year they used 9 shortstops, 8 second basemen, and 7 third basemen.
And a big change this year in that Bordick has started all 18 games at short for Oakland, and he has hit safely in 14 of them. The 1-2. Chopped foul. At the conclusion of today's game, Tim McCarver and I will select the Chevrolet Most Valuable Player of the game. Chevrolet will donate $1,000 in the player's name to the Special Olympics.
You did well last week, so you get to do it again this week. Not a bad deal.
Get to participate 2 weeks in a row. An honor indeed. I think it was a pretty easy choice last week.
Yes. Yeah.
Andre Dawson, our first Chevrolet player of the game for the season. Tough play, Gagne. Couldn't get it there in time. He did everything he could do, but Bordick beat it out for his second hit of the ball game.
Once it gets by Scott Leyes, Gagne with almost no chance. He does what he can, but Bordick easily beats it at first base.
The Athletics have the lead man on for the 3rd time in 4 innings. Ricky Henderson started the ball game with a single to center, and he scored the first of the 6 Oakland runs in this one. Ricky grounded to the first baseman Larkin in the second. Takes a fastball for a strike. And for the second time in as many innings, left-hander Bob Kipper has started throwing in the Minnesota pen. A little lob back of second. Donnie Hill couldn't get it. Bordick to second. Well, the Athletics have 10 hits now, but not all of them have been shots around the ballpark.
Haven't been shots heard around the world, just here in the Dome. 2 hits for Henderson, both of the same ilk. Broken bat base hits into center field. Oakland trying to turn it around, and to take you back to our opening, the Oakland Athletics since 1984, 17 wins and 38 losses in this ballpark. Only one other team was worse, the Seattle Mariners.
Lansford's fly ball to center, taken by Puckett. Runners tag but do not advance. 1 out. We're in the 4th. Oakland leads 6-0. If you're just joining us, the Athletics going to run in the first, then 4 in the second, highlighted by a 2-run single by Willie Wilson. Wilson has driven in 3 runs in this game. Terry Steinbach is just off the disabled list, and 2 for 2 with a double and a single, and a run scored. And Joe Slusarski has allowed just 1 hit through 3 innings, a single by Greg Gagne. Jose Canseco bounced into a double play in the first. A run scored on that play, and he was robbed of a hit on a great diving catch by Greg Gagne, who fielded Canseco's looper on the run with his back to the infield in left field.
One thing you can't say about Jose Canseco is that he really motors or that he's Cadillacing it. Because most of his problems over the last couple of years have been centered around automobiles. Smashing into his wife's car in Florida. He's undergoing counseling for that little episode.
That was his Porsche into his wife's BMW.
And then when he was parked in Oakland, a gentleman rammed into his Lamborghini, his $200,000 Lamborghini. $200,000 for an automobile. That's twice the major league minimum. Major league minimum $109,000, and Jose with a car that costs twice the major league minimum. And the guy, after ramming into his door, wanted Jose's autograph.
And Jose gave it to him.
And he gave it to him, yeah.
The Lamborghini needed a new door. Do you think they took up a collection in the clubhouse to help him pay for it?
I think the irony of ironies would be for Jose to be the Chevrolet player of the game.
He is not a factor in our balloting at the moment. It's too bad they just put Henry Mercedes back down to the minors. Jose strikes out. Second strikeout for Kevin Tapani. Canseco 0 for 3. Quiet on an otherwise big afternoon at this point for his teammates. They lead 6-0. Tom Kelly on his way to the mound. He does have Kipper warm in the bullpen, and the left-handed hitting Harold Baines due up next. And Kelly will make the pitching change. Tapani departs after 3 2/3. 6-0 Oakland. Bob Kipper, the new pitcher, when we come back.
This relief break is sponsored by
Bob Kipper on
Rolaids.
relief. Harold Baines at the plate, the first man to face Bob Kipper. We're in the 4th. It's 6-0 Oakland. Runners at first and second with 2 outs. And a count now, a ball and a strike on Harold Baines. Slap to the left side. Gagne 2 Hill for the force on Henderson. That ends the inning. Skipper comes on to do the job well. And after 3.5, it's 6-0 Oakland.
CBS Sports presents Major League Baseball. Today's game is brought to you by Pontiac. We build excitement. Glidden, the paint used in over half the homes in America. And by Sears Auto Center. You got to ask yourself, who's going to back you better than Sears?
6-0 Oakland, and the Athletics knocked Twins starter Kevin Tapani out of the box after 3 2/3 innings. He allowed 10 hits and 6 earned runs while walking 1 and striking out 2. Over his first 3 starts, he had pitched into the 7th inning in each of the 3. There's Bob Casey, public address announcer here at the Metrodome. And one of the real joys of coming to a game in this building is his colorful delivery at the public address mic, and we'll let you listen in when Kirby Puckett strolls to the plate to be the next batter. But first, Donnie Hill, who was out on the ground ball to third his first time up.
Bob Casey has been the public address announcer here since the Twins moved from Washington to Minnesota. And you were telling me last night, how many games has he missed? 3?
Case told me yesterday he's missed 3 games since 1961, all as a result of his children graduating from high school or college. He never missed a game due to illness. And he was PA man for the Millers for 10 years prior to the Twins' arrival here. He was the PA man for Willie Mays when he played in the Twin Cities. Now here comes Kirby, and here's Bob Casey.
Batting third, number 34, the center fielder, Kirby Puckett.
All right. Oh, that's great.
Kirby flied to right his first time up. That's pulled to short. Nordic throws him out. Twins have only had 1 base runner. There are 2 outs in the bottom of the 4th. It's 6-0 Oakland.
The designated hitter, Ken Hrbek.
Bob Casey glad to be introducing Ken Hrbek, playing his 2nd game of the season. In the middle of the order for the Twins has really struggled to this point this season without Hrbek's presence. Chili Davis is not in the lineup today, but he's had his problems, and the Twins talk about the absence of Hrbek being a key. That's well struck, and it falls in front of Willie Wilson for the 2nd Minnesota hit. But both Twins hits have come with 2 outs.
Almost on cue, Ken Hrbek dropping one in front of Willie Wilson, the center fielder. And you know, the crowd acknowledging what you just said, realizing that the Twins need Hrbek in the middle of the lineup, and also realizing it's his first hit of 92.
He's at first with 2 outs in the 4th. 6-0 Oakland. The Athletics out hitting the Twins 10-2. McGuire plays behind Hrbek. Brian Harper at the plate. Fouled into the first base seats. Harper is 0 for 1 this afternoon. He was out on a fly ball to center field his first time up.
And if you're looking for a strikeout or a walk, you can almost forget it. Brian Harper puts the ball in play more than any other major league hitter. 1 walk every 30 appearances, 1 strikeout every 16. That's not necessarily an advantage, by the way. A lot of times you put a ball in play, it might be a pitcher's pitch, you foul it off, you keep it in play, you make too much contact.
He swung at a bad ball, a pitcher's pitch.
I guess he's been working on that, swinging through pitches, huh? I mean, what are you going to do if you make too much contact? It's a nuance of your style. I mean, you can't come out and take batting practice and try to swing through pitches. So it's a very a strange thing for a hitter to have, but Harper, this premier contact batter in baseball.
Did a good job to get Wood on that one with the pitch crowding him.
Last night, an example. Bottom of the 10th inning, bases loaded, nobody out, or one out, and Harper was the batter, and he fouled off several pitches from Goose Gossage until he finally made contact and hit a sacrifice fly to Canseco in right field.
In shallow right center, Canseco makes the running catch. That's all for Minnesota in the 4th. We've played 4 at the Metrodome, where Oakland enjoys a 6-0 lead.
You're watching CBS Sports coverage of Major League Baseball.
If you're the visiting team, you want to be right where the Oakland Athletics are on the left field wall here at the Metrodome. They put the banners up in order of the positions in the standings, starting at the left field line and working toward left center. The Twins hate the fact that they are in left center.
Yeah.
Mark McGwire takes that toward the Oakland pennant on the left field wall, but foul.
Kansas City Royals 1-15 out of the chute.
Their pennant is in St. Paul. Fastball, a ball to Mark McGwire. Actually, in St. Paul today is the NCAA Women's Gymnastics Championship. How many events can the Twin Cities have within the span of a couple of years? It's incredible, the number of premier sporting events that have been held in this area, and a credit to the facilities and the people who are capable of organizing.
And a boon to the merchants in this city. World Series last year, World Series winners, the Super Bowl, NCAA finals.
Base hit. Mark McGwire on for the 3rd time. He's 2 for 2 with 2 singles and a walk. He's already scored twice.
We will take you around the American League horn. Roberto Alomar off to a hot pace with the Toronto Blue Jays. The Blue Jays in first place by 2 games over the surprising New York Yankees. And who's leading the Yankees? Well, Roberto Kelly. 3rd in the American League in runs scored, a .369 average is 2nd. And with the Chicago White Sox, we mentioned the serious injury to Guillen earlier. Well, Jack McDowell, the first 4-game winner in the American League.
Pitch got by Harper. Not far enough for McGwire to advance. Marks at first with the first hit surrendered by Kipper, who has faced just 2 hitters. Starter Tapani gave up 10 hits in 3 2/3 innings. Terry Steinbach 2 for 2 as he was activated today. A double and a single. He has scored a run. He swung over the fastball of Kipper. We had a chuckle at the expense of the Royals. Their start 1-15, one of the worst through 16 games in this century. Of course, Baltimore started 0-16 in 1988. Brooklyn in 1907, 1-15. Cleveland in 69, 1-15. Kansas City in this season, 1-15. The worst starts through 16 games this century.
Even the lowly New York Mets in their first season back in 1962, a year in which they lost 120 games, didn't start out worse than 1-15, even though they did lose their first 9 before winning a game.
And it's really come as a shock to Herc Robinson, the general manager of the Royals, and Hal McRae. They thought with the changes they made and that trade with the Mets in the offseason that they had a much improved team.
Kevin McReynolds, Keith Miller, Greg Jeffries going to Kansas City for Brett Saberhagen and Bill Pacoda.
Two and 2 on Terry Steinbach. Well, Saberhagen finally had the kind of outing you would expect him to have for the Mets.
Pitching 9 shutout innings and a no decision the other day. A game won by the Mets in 13 innings over St. Louis, 1-0.
(6-0) Oakland. We're in the 5th. The Athletics scored in each of the first 3 innings. They got 4 in the second. Kipper missing high. Steinbach has worked the count full. Off-speed pitch, well hit to right. Munoz, nice catch. Running backhand stab in the gap at right center.
You imagine breaking in as an outfielder in the toughest outfield in baseball as far as seeing the ball and getting a jump on it here in the Metrodome. Balls are lost in that ceiling all the time.
And you have to play the always humorous Baggy in right field.
Right. At least you can slam into it without fear of being injured.
You might get zip-locked, but you won't be injured. Willie Wilson drops down a bunt. Kipper looked to second, goes to first. Willie Wilson has played in 1,915 games in his 17 seasons in the majors. And this is the first time, with his 3 runs batted in last night and 3 today, that he has driven in 3 or more runs in 2 consecutive games. That's amazing when you think he's played nearly 2,000 games.
Remarkable.
He had 3 last night and 3 this afternoon. Now 10 runs batted in for the season for Wilson. Jerry Brown. He is the lesser known of the 2 Jerry Browns trying to make a comeback in 1992. Popped up. Harper thinks he has a chance. He does. And he makes the play. Halfway through the ball game at the Metrodome, 6-0 Athletics. Here's a look at the Baggy in right field. It is 16 feet above the 7-foot-high fence, and it covers 7,600 retractable football seats.
It's where guys go to get zip-locked, you said.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Actually, when the Twins first started playing in the Metrodome 10 years ago, the fence was 7 feet all the way around, and balls were flying out of here to all fields. They also put plexiglass above the field and left. The fence 7 feet and left with 6 feet of plexiglass. The only place the wall remains 7 feet high is in straightaway center field. Pedro Munoz leading off the 5th against Joe Slusarski. Munoz, then Larkin and Elias, hitters 6, 7, and 8 in the Twins batting order. Minnesota has managed just 2 hits through 4 innings. Munoz struck out, 1 of 2 recorded by Slusarski. You would want him with the 6-0 lead. Slusarski throwing almost nothing but strikes. He hasn't walked about it.
It's impressive, and I think interesting to note that young pitchers, when they're given a big lead, for the most part, pitch the same way as they do in a tight ball game. It's older pitchers who fall prey into carelessness when they have a big lead.
The 1-2 is lifted to center. Wilson the catch. Last year, Joe Slusarski bounced back and forth between AAA and the big leagues 5 times. Yesterday, Tim asked him the difference between the majors and minors.
I think the comfort factor has a lot to do with it. You get to know the hitters, and especially for me, the parks, you get to realize that the atmosphere is just something you have to deal with and not fight, but just adjust to it. So I think getting to know all the major league parks and some of the hitters has helped me quite a bit.
Indeed it has.
Manager Tony La Russa talking about the new confidence that Sluzarski has. 5-7 last year and 1-0 this year. Tony talking about how he carries himself differently this year with that. It's similar to the way Tony La Russa carries himself.
Fouled at home plate. Sluzarski almost joined several of his teammates on the disabled list to start the season. Late in spring training in Arizona, he was playing golf, hit his ball out of the fairway and into the desert, went to retrieve it, picked it up with his right hand, which is always a mistake for a right-handed pitcher, and struck his hand against a cactus. By Joe's count, he had about 15 cactus needles in his right hand. Pulled him out and didn't have any problems, continued playing, but overnight his hand was badly swollen. He missed a spring training start.
It was infected. As a matter of fact, he had to have minor surgery to get the needles out of that hand.
Still 2-2 on Gene Larkin.
Added incentive to keep the ball in the fairway in Arizona, especially.
I can sympathize with Joe. I've seen many a cactus,
I can too.
a pine tree, a body of water. Well hit. Deep enough to be a homer if it's fair. And into the upper deck. Tremendous shot by Gene Larkin off Joe Sluzarski. And the Twins are on the board on Larkin's third homer of the year.
If you're a baseball fan, last fall, Gene Larkin was the last hitter you saw. A pinch hit single to win it for the Minnesota Twins when they beat the Atlanta Braves in 7 games. And if you followed the game today, he's the last hitter you saw. Home run, about 10 feet fair.
We almost saw that ball at the concession stand. It nearly went down the walkway onto the concourse. Gene Larkin, who broke many of Lou Gehrig's records at Columbia, with his team leading 12th run batted in of the year. Minnesota, as we mentioned earlier, has won 6 of the last 7 between these two teams here at the Metrodome. In 5 of those 6 wins, the Twins have trailed by at least 2 runs and have mounted a comeback, including last night when Tom Kelly's Chargers were down 5-0. They have their work cut out for them again today. Scott Leyes was one of the heroes last night when he had 3 hits. That's well hit to left. Henderson looking up. That one's gone, and it's 6-2. That's the first home run of the season for Scott Leyes.
And speaking of the World Series, his first home run since his home run that won it for the Twins in Game 2 of the World Series. He hit that one off Glavine, and he pops this one off Joe Sluzarski. Sluzarski allowed 14 home runs against him last year, and the Oakland Athletics gave up more home runs than any other team in baseball last season. 156.
Greg Gagne, the batter. Back-to-back homers. And for the first time today, the crowd is alive here at the Dome. We're in the 5th, 6-2 Oakland. Scott Leyes, over a game and a half, has now hit for the cycle. We mentioned he had 3 hits last night. They were a single, double, and triple. So he's added the home run to it today. And perhaps he's saying to Tom Kelly, hey, let me play against these right-handed pitchers every now and then. For the most part, over the last year plus, it's been a platoon at third with Mike Pagliarulo. Pagliarulo on the disabled list, probably out of action for about 6 weeks. He'll need surgery on that fractured bone in his right hand.
And Tom Kelly telling us before the game that Leyes would be the third baseman when Bill Kruger pitches, or John Smiley, or Scott Erickson, because they're the types of pitchers that throw a lot of ground balls that are hit to the third baseman. Leyes a better fielder than Hill.
And things starting to unravel for Slusarski. After the back-to-back home runs, he has issued his first walk. And that will bring pitching coach Dave Duncan quickly to the mound. Tim, I mentioned the recent track record between these two teams. Obviously, the Athletics are well aware that they've blown a lot of leads in this park in the last 2 seasons. Is that something as a player that plays on your mind?
I don't think year to year. I think it does. I say that, and yet a comment by Jose Canseco today in the paper. Canseco striking out against Gary Wayne last night with the potential winning run at third base, and he said weird things seem to happen to us in this park. So from that remark, I would think a year to year is a carryover, especially with a team like the Athletics, because they have the same people coming back and they've experienced it before. So it could be a mental block, but for most teams, because it is a year-to-year thing, you have a tendency to forget about it. You don't want things like that to become a mental block.
Still just 1 out here in the 5th. The top of the order around for the 3rd time. Shane Mack has twice grounded to second, rather to third in this one. 6-2 Oakland. Mack took a fastball for a strike.
That's what happens to a young pitcher, though. You give up a couple of home runs, and that scares you out of the strike zone. 4 straight balls thrown to Greg Gagne. That's where I'm sure that's what Dave Duncan said to him when he was on the mound. Just resume what you were doing earlier. For 2 solo homers, you still have a big cushion with 4 runs to work with.
On the inside corner. We talk about Oakland's difficulties here in the Dome over the last several seasons. I asked Tony La Russa about that last night. He said we really need to start playing in this park more like the Twins. So if we come in here and think we're just going to hit pop-ups that will go out of the park and rely on trying to hit home runs, we're going to have a long weekend.
That's why he sent the runners earlier in this game, resulting in some scoring opportunities.
That's well struck, but it will stay in the park. Gagne is tagging. He won't try to move to second as Wilson gets it back in quickly. By far, the most difficult inning for Joe Slusarski to this point. Under the roof of the Metrodome, Sean McDonough and Tim McCarver, happy to have you with us for the Twins and the Athletics. Oakland leading 6-2 in the bottom of the 5th. Donnie Hill at the plate with 2 outs and Gagne at first. Check swing and a strike. Hill's 0 for 2. He has bounced to third and flied to left. Gagne has 1 stolen base, but he has been caught twice trying to steal. Bordick had him played perfectly. He steps on the bag to force Gagne and end the inning. The Twins get 2 on back-to-back homers by Larkin and Leyes, and will return to the Metrodome after this word from your local station. In the bottom of the 5th, they trail 6-2. Bob Kipper ready to begin his 2nd full inning of relief. He's pitched an inning and a third since he came on for Kevin Tapani, facing the number 9 hitter in Mike Bordick. Mike has 2 singles. He has driven in a run and scored one. Out of play and right.
Bob Kipper, one of only 2 Pirates to open Pittsburgh's opening day last year, being on the Pirate team when Jim Leyland took over with the Pirates. Bob walked the other. So those 2 with the Pittsburgh Pirates when Jim Leyland took over. Jim Leyland, as good as they come. A whole package there.
Base hit. Bordick is 3 for 3. Twelve hits now for Oakland, 2 of them at the expense of Bob Kipper. Now the top of the order for the 4th time for the Athletics, and Rickey Henderson. He has 2 of the 12 hits, a pair of singles, both to center field. He has scored a run. No stolen bases today for Rickey. He's still at .998 for his career.
Rickey only 33 years old and 4 months today. Exactly 33-4. Lou Brock had just over 600 stolen bases at Rickey Henderson's age. 608 to be exact. And then Lou went on to steal 50 bases 4 more seasons. He had a total of 373 after his 33rd birthday.
Brock, however, the exception. No other player in baseball history has had as many as 2 seasons with 50 stolen bases after they have reached Rickey Henderson's age, 33 years, 4 months. Rickey's single in the first was his first hit ever against Kevin Tapani. He came into this ball game 1 for 11. Rather 0 for 10. He's now 1 for 11 against the Minnesota starter. 6-2 Oakland. We're in the top of the 6th. Off-speed pitch for a strike. We're at the Metrodome in Minneapolis, and a big crowd on hand to watch game 2 of a 3-game series between the Oakland Athletics and the Minnesota Twins. Oakland trying to even this series at 1 win apiece, and they have a 6-2 lead. They have Bruce Walton warming up in their bullpen. The full count. And I'd bet that you'd bet a lot of money that Bordick would be on the run with this pitch.
Wouldn't bet against it. One thing you have to do if you're a runner on first base, 3-2 the count, you have to make sure the pitcher pitches.
He does, and Bordick runs, and that's well hit down the left field line. Mack to the corner. It is a foul ball by about 6 or 7 feet. Did a nice job there of making sure that Kipper was indeed pitching. He's at first with nobody out. Another 3-2 with Bordick running. He struck him out. Harper didn't get him. Another close play at second, but Bordick has the stolen base. Rickey now 2 for 4.
Because to carry that a step further, because you have to make sure the pitcher pitches, then you obviously can't get a good jump. Bordick doesn't, but the throw by Harper is a little high, allowing Bordick to slide in. I think you get there quicker if you slide head first, but if I were running a minor league operation I would demand that no young player slide head first.
Why?
Too many opportunities to get hurt. Too many things that can go wrong with the hands. The hands, a hitter's most valuable tools. The fingers. Pete Rose did it, and I think he kind of opened the eyes of baseball on how successful. I don't think Pete was ever hurt sliding head first, but that is more in vogue today than it's ever been. I think you get there quicker, but the risk is too great to young players.
Lansford having another terrific day. 2 for 3 with 2 singles and an RBI.
I didn't expect you to ask me why so quickly.
Well, I knew the way you delivered it with conviction that you had a good reason. Harper to the mound will take the opportunity to remind you that tomorrow on CBS at 1 Eastern time, the NCAA Championship Series continues with men's wrestling. The nation's top wrestlers compete in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Now, my question would be, why is that not here in the Twin Cities, where every other big event has been lately, it seems? And on CBS Sports Sunday at 2 Eastern time, it's the AKC National Invitational Dog Championship, sponsored by Pedigree. In this first ever event, top winning show dogs will be judged on their appearance, conditioning, and showmanship for $50,000 in cash prizes. Looking forward to that tomorrow at 2 Eastern time, a Canine Classic on CBS Sports. Two balls and 1 strike on Lansford. Carney started the day at 364, 4th in the American League batting race. Roberto Alomar, as Tim told you earlier, leading the league at 378. Lansford now at 379 with his 2 for 3, as you saw on the graphic a moment ago.
Julio Franco, a right-handed batter, leading the American League in hitting last year. Carney Lansford, 1981. Kirby Puckett, 1989. The only 3 right-handed batters in the last 21 years to lead the American League. Alex Johnson led the American League in hitting back in 1970, and since that time, over the next 21 years, only 3 right-handers. Speaking of leading the league in hitting, Roberto Alomar leads the American League in hitting. Roberto Kelly second. Poyles, Carney Lansford fourth, and Kevin Seitzer. Dropped from the Kansas City Royals in spring training. He signed with Milwaukee and is doing a bang-up job at third base.
And again, those numbers entering today's play. Lansford called out on strikes. Back-to-back strikeouts for Bob Kipper.
And we mentioned it earlier, the ideal number 2 hitter. You don't want your number 2 hitter to strike out a lot. It's only the 2nd time that Lansford has fanned in 68 plate appearances so far this year. He just gets locked on the fastball inside. Not only does he not strike out a lot, you almost never see him take a call third strike.
Jose Canseco, 0 for 3 this afternoon. They're going to walk him. That'll set up first and second and 2 outs, and they'll get the lefty Kipper on the left-handed swinging Harold Baines. Although Harold has returned to the dugout, as you saw. And Randy Reddy is going to bat for him.
It's a scoring opportunity for the Athletics to pad their lead, realizing nothing is safe. And Harold Baines hitless against left-handers this year, 0 for 14. I think that's one of the things that has changed in the game. I think older managers used to play more by hunches instead of having the numbers in front of them. As a matter of fact, I think the crop of managers, or at least a case could be made, that the crop of managers in the major leagues today, from, again, a whole package standpoint, are the best there's ever been in Major League Baseball. And I think one of the reasons is they're forced into that situation. More social problems, more sophistication in the game itself.
More media.
More media attention, absolutely, electronic and written.
you have a couple of great examples to help support your claim in the two managers we have in the dugouts here today, Tony La Russa and Tom Kelly. Randy Reddy spent much of this season to this point on the disabled list. And knowing La Russa, he knows that Reddy is 3 for 8 lifetime against Kipper, with 5 walks thrown in as well. Mike Bordick, the runner, at second, and Jose Canseco at first. With 2 outs, we're in the 6th. 6-2 Oakland. 2 balls and a strike, the count now on Randy Reddy.
I think managers have to use their players better now. There are more injuries with which to cope. There are more long-term contracts. A lot of players, almost all of the players, are making more than the manager. The average salary is $1 million plus. How many managers make $1 million? That guy's worth his weight in gold right there, Tom Kelly.
To short. Gagne, the short way to Hill for the force on Canseco. The Twins avoid further damage in the 6th inning after 5 1/2. 6-2 Oakland. The bottom of the 6th, and Tony La Russa has a new pitcher on the mound for the Athletics. He is 29-year-old right-hander Bruce Walton.
Walton from Bakersfield, California. Selected by the Athletics in the 16th round of the free agent draft back in 1985. He debuted at Yankee Stadium last May. Got a no decision in that game. And he's one of 2 Christmas babies on the Athletics. The other, Ricky Henderson, both born on Christmas Day.
And with the reliever into the ball game, we'll update you on the standings for the Rolaids reliever of the year in the American League. Not a big surprise that Dennis Eckersley leads Dwayne Ward of Toronto, but a big surprise in the National League. Some thought with Doug Jones' troubles last year in Cleveland that his career might be over. He's on top.
And some people thought that without Rob Dibble helping him out, that Norm Charlton would not be able to carry the load himself, but he has indeed carried the load thus far. Rob Dibble is on the active list, as you may or may not know, but his shoulder's still tender.
Kirby Puckett begins the 6th for the Twins. Meat of the order, Puckett, Herbeck, and Harper coming up against Walton. There's a base hit. Puckett is 1 for 3. Now Kent Herbeck, who struck out in the 2nd and picked up his first hit of the season in this his 2nd game with a single to center in the 4th. The infield at double play depth, and they hold Puckett on at first.
I'm a little surprised at that with Herbeck hitting. Herbeck's not going to bunt, and it's proper to hold the runner on at first base if you've got a hitter up there that could bunt. But obviously Herbeck is not a fast runner, and yet McGuire elects to hold him on. I think that's a mistake. You've got a pull hitter up there and a 4-run lead. I think McGuire should be playing behind him in this instance.
Bruce Walton, after 5 innings from Joe Slusarski. That's a ball high. Slusarski, over those 5 innings, allowed 4 hits, but 2 of them home runs, accounting for the 2 Minnesota runs in this game. The home runs by Larkin and Leas that came back-to-back last inning. Slusarski walked only 1. He struck out 2. He threw 77 pitches and definitely demonstrated that he was tiring last inning.
Bruce doesn't look like one of the Waltons.
I think Mrs. Walton would have him shaved. Breaking ball. 3 balls and 1 strike. A big key to the fast start for Oakland this year has been a much improved bullpen. Ron Gardenhire through the signs. Last year, the Oakland bullpen had an ERA of 4.74. This year, I've almost cut that in half. Herbeck to left. Room for Ricky. Puckett is tagging. He's going to try it. Down by 4. He's out.
Rickey Henderson, the innovator of the snatch catch. I think what Puckett thought was that Rickey was going to snatch it, and instead Brown snatches it and tags out Puckett. Fine throw by Rickey Henderson. Puckett thought he'd catch him asleep, but no, sir. It's a bad play by Kirby Puckett when you're thrown out trailing by 4 runs. You got to play it base to base, then you're forced into that position. Nice try, bad play.
Just a play you cannot make.
That's
particularly,
right.
as you say, once he had the play right in front of him and saw that Rickey did not make the snatch catch and was getting it back in quickly, he could have gone a third of the way, a halfway to second, and then returned. But even with the play right in front of him, he ran himself into a crucial out. Now 2 outs and the base is empty for Brian Harper. He's quickly in the hole, 0-2. Fouled it off his leg. Harper is flied to center and to right. We're in the 6th. The Athletics lead 6-2. Bruce Walton made it to the major leagues last year after 6 long seasons of toiling in the minor leagues. One and 2 on Brian Harper. Well hit, but right into the glove of Lansford. What started as a promising inning turned very sour very quickly for the Twins. Sean McDonough with Tim McCarver at the Metrodome in Minneapolis, visiting Oakland Athletics. Jumped off to a 6-0 lead after 3 innings, and they lead 6-2 as they get ready to come up in the 7th. And as you look at scores of other action, Baltimore leading the Yankees 3-0. Baltimore getting some terrific pitching in this early 1992 season. Rick Sutcliffe, Mike Mussina, Ben McDonald, among others.
Rick Sutcliffe with 3 complete games after having and suffering through all that arm problem, or those arm problems with the Chicago Cubs the last couple of years.
Bob Kipper looking in at Mark McGwire, then Terry Steinbach and Willie Wilson here in the 7th. McGwire a perfect day again today. 2 singles and a walk. He has scored twice. Ripped and caught. Great diving stab of the line drive by Scott Leyes.
Tom Kelly before the game talking about the range of Scott Leyes. Balls of his feet. Nice play. Little snow cone right there. Tasty.
Particularly for Scott Leyes. Now the man in the spotlight at third. Minnesota with Pagliarulo on the DL. That's well hit to the opposite field by Steinbach, and it is a home run. Just over the baggie. First home run of the season for Steinbach, and his 3rd hit of the day. It's 7-2 Oakland.
There's a saying in baseball, when hitters do well initially, guys say right out of bed. Well, right off the disabled list for Terry Steinbach. What a brilliant day for the Athletic catcher. Home run, double, and single. And he was hitless for the season coming into this afternoon's play, 0 for 5.
Steinbach doing it in front of the home folks. He's from New Ulm, Minnesota.
Played for the University of Minnesota, as a matter of fact.
He was a Gopher for 3 years. Terry is New Ulm High School's all-time leading scorer in ice hockey. Much of the attention of the sports fans in this area centered on the North Stars, trying to have another surprising run toward the Stanley Cup Finals as they did a year ago. Willie Wilson, the batter. He's driven in 3 today with a 2-run single and a sacrifice fly. Golfed into center, a base hit.
All of the balls that Steinbach has hit today have been to right field. He doubled his first time up, single to right, line to right, and he lines this one to right. Look at his head. Going to Chicago next week, I'll tell you, Walt Reniak, the hitting instructor of the Chicago White Sox, would have been very impressed with the head of Terry Steinbach. That's what Reniak teaches, even though he does teach having the top hand fly off to keep the head on the ball.
Jose Canseco says that's one of the reasons why he likes to hit in this park. Wilson trying to run, and they picked him off. 1-3-6.
Yeah, any right-handed hitter with power the other way, a guy like Munoz with the Twins, Canseco, or Steinbach, as he's proven. And Willie Wilson picked off, trying to steal his second base of the game.
Jose Canseco said last night he had 3 home runs here in the Metrodome last year to right field. None of the 3 of them very well hit. That was well hit, but taken in by Puckett. Jerry Brown is now 0 for 4. 7th inning stretch at the Metrodome.
This is a CBS News special report. I'm Bob Schieffer in New York. A strong earthquake has hit Northern California. The quake is measuring some 7 on the Richter scale. It's centered, we're told, about 35 miles southwest of Eureka. That is just off the coast near the town of Ferndale. So far, there are reports it has touched off fires in the city of Ferndale. We also have some reports of injuries. Witnesses say some bricks fell from buildings. Some people on the ground were injured by that. The quake, we're told, was felt as far north as southern Oregon and as far south as San Francisco. A quake measuring 7, of course, is capable of causing widespread heavy damage. This is the 2nd major quake to hit California this week. Wednesday's quake hit in Southern California. It measured 6.1. Repeating, there's been a strong earthquake in Northern California near the town and around the town of Ferndale. Reports are sketchy, but we're told there are injuries and there has been damage. We'll have more on all this as it occurs and on tonight's CBS Evening News. Now let's go back to the ball game.
Thank you, Bob. Distressing news indeed.
Oh, boy.
I know, Tim, whenever you hear a report like that, your mind goes back to 1989 when you were in the booth at the World Series.
October 17th, 1989 at 5:04 p.m. when the 7-point earthquake struck, slightly less than that, I guess, struck San Francisco. The epicenter was about 80 miles south of there. Terrifying.
McGuire couldn't get to it. Munoz still alive as the leadoff hitter here in the 7th.
Mark drifting over toward the Athletics bullpen. You don't really know where you are. Your concentration is on the ball, but the one thing that McGuire doesn't want, going as well as he's been going, is to trip over that bullpen and cause serious damage.
Bruce Walton beginning his 2nd inning of relief. Munoz, Larkin, and Leyes scheduled to face him here in the 7th, with Oakland leading 7-2. Well hit, base hit. Munoz has his first hit of the game. Walton looked in the direction of the bullpen, and there is activity about to begin down there for Oakland as Gene Larkin stands in. The ball, Larkin provided the Twins with their first run of the ball game when he had a home run in the 5th inning off Joe Slusarski. He's 1 for 2.
Speaking of a guy who provided the Twins with runs, what about their batting instructor Terry Crowley, hired by Tom Kelly before last season? The Twins improved in batting average and home runs.
Line to center. Wilson started in, then drifted back to make the catch. They improved significantly in the home run department. In 1990, the Twins had exactly 100 homers. Last year, in Terry Crowley's first year as batting coach for Minnesota, and there is Terry Crowley in the center of your screen, they hit 140 home runs, an increase of 40. They hit a major league leading 288 last year. Interesting philosophies. We'll see Walt Hriniak and the Chicago White Sox. Many of you will next week. He believes in trying to basically teach the same principles to every hitter. Terry Crowley says his approach is exactly the opposite. Take the strengths of the hitter and work with them. Balk has been called against Bruce Walton by third base umpire Jim Evans.
I think when Bruce came set, he must have moved his hands. Well, watch when he sets. He's got a high set right there. And now Jim Evans calls a balk, and I don't know why he called a balk. I can't see a balk right there. Once you're in the glove with the ball, you can't separate your hands. When Evans called it, I initially thought that that was the reason. But as you saw in your picture, he did not separate his hands. Walton's complaining. Now LaRusso can't complain if it's on a kick to first base. On a spin move to first, a manager can't complain. But maybe LaRusso looks like he's agreeing with Jim Evans.
Really good umpiring there, too, by Jim Evans. So much attention has been given to the umpire's combativeness, and I think a lot of times they're deserving of criticism for being antagonistic when they're on the field. But in this case, he went over with a pleasant demeanor, expressed his opinion. The parties that heard it at least seemed to be in agreement with it, and on we go without incident.
And Tony La Russa, ever the mentor, was saying, well, that's right, maybe it won't happen again.
Seemed to be some sort of shaking of the shoulders that Jim Evans was demonstrating with his gesture. (7-2) Oakland. We're in the bottom of the 7th. Munoz at second with 1 out. Breaking ball and a good one. It straightened the back of Leyes, who hit a home run his last time up. He's 1 for 2 today. Center, and that falls for a hit. The balk hurts as Munoz comes around to score. And Scott Leyes is on a tear. 3 hits last night. He's 2 for 3 today with 2 runs batted in.
And you talked about all the championship finals that have been played here in Minneapolis. After seeing that hit by Scott Leyes, maybe the Tennis Association will take a crack at the Metrodome, as it is indeed lobbed into left center field off the end of the bat, and Leyes with his 2nd RBI of the game.
Well, there is a Davis Cup match coming up here in the Twin Cities.
That's right.
Greg Gagne, the batter, to right, and room for Canseco. 2 outs. Terry Crowley looking for some offense from the top of the Twins batting order. Shane Mack 0 for 3 today. He has grounded out twice and flied to center. In the air to center. Wilson gliding back to the warning track to make the catch. The Twins get one and strand one after 7-3 Oakland.
Talked about Terry Crowley's unusual style and working with his hitters, working on their individual nuances. Well, Doug Rader, the batting instructor of the Oakland Athletics, does the same thing. And Mark McGwire, an example of that. Mark and Doug really kind of silent about the success that McGwire has had in the early going.
As Tony La Russa said last night, as a major league coach, you never like to take credit for a player's success. That credit belongs to the player. As a result, Doug Rader hasn't said anything about his work with Mark McGwire.
Doug Rader deposed as the manager of the California Angels last year, and his batting instructor, Darren Johnson. And I'll tell you, baseball has lost a gallant warrior in Darren Johnson. He passed away on Thursday, 53 years young. Terrific major league player, and talked to his wife last night, Lou, and his 2 sons, Dominic and Darren, as Doug did a couple of days ago. He and Darren very, very close. And Darren Johnson, a mountain of a man, both on and off the field.
Mike Bordick, the batter. He has matched his career high with 3 hits in this one. And now he's exceeded it with his 4th hit of the game. Played by Puckett off the wall. It's a double for Mike Bordick to go along with 3 singles today. Mark Guthrie, a left-hander, just started throwing in the Minnesota bullpen. He was warming up when the inning started, and Bob Kipper has done a nice job of keeping his team in the game.
Remarkable production out of the bottom half of the Athletics order today. Terry Steinbach, 3 hits. He's the 6th hole hitter. Willie Wilson, batting 7th, has 3 hits. And now your number 9 hitter gets his 4th hit to lead off the 8th inning.
That might be it for Kipper, who was signed as a free agent by Minnesota in the offseason for $900,000. And he will be replaced by fellow lefty Mark Guthrie when we come back. New pitcher for the Minnesota Twins. He's 26-year-old lefty Mark Guthrie.
7th appearance for the Twins this year, 7-5 last year with a couple of saves. Tom Kelly going about as far as he could with Bob Kipper. Kipper working 3 1/3, and now it's Guthrie.
Did a good job by Kipper over those 3 1/3. He allowed just 1 run on the home run by Steinbach to the opposite field. He is responsible for Bordick, the base runner, at second. And here's Ricky Henderson, 2 for 4 today with a pair of singles. He has scored a run. It's 7-3 Oakland. The Athletics batting in the 8th inning. Strike 1 in from Guthrie. Mark has spent all of his professional career in the Twins organization. Started in the minor leagues with the Twins in 1987. First got to the big leagues in '89. Last year, his first full season at the major league level, and he appeared in 41 games for Tom Kelly. He's 6'4", 200 pounds. looks Bordick back to second. Mike Bordick, the pride of the state of Maine. Not many players in baseball history who have hailed from Maine.
And when Mark Guthrie went to school, he was the pride of Louisiana. He attended LSU, was a journalism major.
Good for him. We could tell he was a bright guy even from a distance.
That's an unusual tandem, though, isn't it? Playing baseball and being a journalism major.
Well, undoubtedly, he has an excellent rapport with the media. Coming up, following baseball, the PGA Tour continues on CBS Sports with third-round coverage of the Kmart Greater Greensboro Open. That's live from Forest Oaks Country Club in Greensboro. Now a five-way tie for the lead. The GGO next on CBS Sports. Still 1-2 on Henderson, and now 2-2. We saw earlier Joe Slusarski, a piece of his conversation with you yesterday, and he spoke of his benefiting from the session that he had with Andrea Kirby, who travels around the country, counseling many professional sports teams on how to deal with the media. And I think we were both impressed watching Joe yesterday and how comfortable he was in front of the cameras and speaking with you. What was nice was Joe talked that he realized the benefits of it. He felt it was important to maintain a good relationship with the media. An opinion not shared by all of his professional athlete colleagues.
Yeah, there are a lot of professional baseball players and others that think that the media uses them, and Joe was saying, I'll turn the tables. Actually, we could use the media, and that was his point.
An enlightened point.
That's an enlightened point, especially for a 25-year-old young man who is only in his second year of professional baseball or Major League Baseball.
Long at bat here for Henderson as he battles Mark Guthrie with the score 7-3 in favor of Oakland in the top of the 8th. Mike Bordick, the runner you see at second base, and nobody out. Henderson to be followed by Carney Lansford. Ralph foul. Tom Kelly, the architect on the field for the Minnesota Twins of 2 world championships. And when you think of all the great managers in baseball history that never won 2 world championships.
Whitey Herzog, Earl Weaver, 2 guys. Great managers never won 2 world championships.
Bordick runs. The pitch is in the dirt. And it's a stolen base for Bordick. His second of the game, 4th of the season.
Lulling Mark Guthrie to sleep, never even attempting to run at second base, and he picked the right pitch on which to run. The ball in the dirt. Harper couldn't find the handle. Not that there are handles on baseballs.
Thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
They did appeal down to Ted Hendry at first, and he said that it was not a swing. It's a full count, and the infield is in for Minnesota. They already trail by 4. Strike 3. Larry McCoy thought about it for a moment. Then he got out the cash register to ring up Rickey Henderson. And Rickey dangerously close to an ejection by tossing his equipment back in the direction of Larry McCoy.
Dangerously and disdainfully. And we talked about the intimidation factor of Rickey Henderson. I have always been under the opinion that more players are run in baseball games the day after a night game. And the reason is they don't get enough sleep, and they become angry and kind of cranky on pitches like this. Rickey thought it was inside, but not Larry McCoy.
That is an interesting theory. Might it also apply to the umpires as well, that they don't sleep?
It applies to broadcasters as well, I think.
Well, you've been in a fine mood throughout the day. Rickey's mood, a frequent topic of conversation. Matter of fact, the man at the plate, Lansford, who's just lifted a pop-up that won't get the run in. Lansford, in an interview in spring training, said Rickey Henderson was a potential cancer on the Oakland Ball Club if his attitude did not remain in check. And to this point, all has been well with Ricky. Several times he has chatted one-on-one with Tony La Russa about the need to stay focused and positive. Focused on Larry McCoy at the moment, the object of his disaffection.
You may remember about a year ago when the Athletics broke training camp, they refused to renegotiate Henderson's contract. He even came out publicly and stated that he may not try as hard if they don't renegotiate his contract. I have never heard a major league player make a comment like that. Maybe they thought it, but I've never heard them make it.
If CBS wanted to pay us $3 million a year, I'd try as hard as I could.
You mean they're not?
Bordick at third as we quickly shift our focus back to the field. Canseco looks at strike two. Now he's right in the face of Larry McCoy.
Second chapter.
The Athletics have 15 hits today. Jose doesn't have any of them. He's 0 for 3 with an intentional walk, and that might be contributing to his foul mood.
Manager obviously cannot argue balls and strikes. That's an automatic ejection. And Tony going right to Canseco and saying, cool off. The fastball from Guthrie. It was close. Those are always borderline pitches. I guess Canseco and guys of his ilk argue a lot about pitches like that because that's where a lot of people pitch them. If you argue enough, maybe they'll stay away from that area. The same about getting knocked down. If enough pitchers pitch you inside and you complain about it enough, maybe you'll alert the umpire to have them stop pitching inside so much.
The 0-2. Well outside. Well, both Henderson and Canseco, in my opinion, a little bit fortunate here. I saw a game last week in which Jack Clark of the Boston Red Sox was ejected by Rick Reed for just dropping the bat and helmet in the batter's box, as Henderson did. And now Canseco, obviously with some unprintables, right into the face of Larry McCoy. At the Metrodome. Were the Twins able to mount a comeback as they did last night? The question I have for you in our setting here is, have you ever had a foul ball in this booth in the many times you've worked here in the Metrodome?
No, I haven't. The worst booth as far as foul balls are concerned, I think everybody would agree, Detroit. The ball is on you in a hurry.
I don't know if from the shot that the fans had at home they had a perspective of the foxhole that we're in, but we're enjoying it. And Donnie Hill has his first hit, trying to get the Twins started on the comeback trip.
It's as though you get a real bunker mentality here.
Yes.
Right?
The field is somewhere out there. Very little room over our heads up here. But I'm used to nothing being over my head. Tony La Russa on his way to the mound. And he will make a pitching change, going to right-hander Gene Nelson when we return to the Metrodome in just a moment. Of the afternoon, he is right-hander Gene Nelson.
Gene, formerly in the New York Yankee organization. He has been a reliever for Oakland for 5 years, primarily middle relief. And in the background, you see Rick Honeycutt, number 40, the left-hander, warming for the Athletics. And Honeycutt and Nelson roomed together when the Athletics took spring training in Sun City, right around the Phoenix area. And Gene Nelson has been playing the banjo for 3 years. And he is quite an accomplished banjo player. I've heard of banjo hitters, but never banjo pitchers.
Nelson had his problems in spring training, and Honeycutt said he really couldn't figure it out. Nelson was still throwing hard, seemed to have good movement on his pitches, but a lot of times to relax and get away from the frustration of what was going on in spring training, Nelson would come home and play that banjo. But after a while, Honeycutt says the conversation eventually turned to Nelson's problems that he was enduring.
While we have some time, let's go around the horn in the National League. We mentioned managers and what a terrific crop there are in Major League Baseball. None better than Jim Leyland. And look at the Pirates. They're 10-1 in their last 11 games, the best earned run average in the major leagues. And Neon Dion on the cover of SI this week, a 371 average. And also Billy Swift, the first 4-game winner in the National League. Look at that earned run average. And here's a guy who spent most of last year in the bullpen with Seattle.
And we talked about Mike Bordick regarding the relatively few professional players in baseball who have come from the state of Maine. Bill Swift is another. He's a native of South Portland, Maine. Kirby Puckett greets Nelson. Donnie Hill, the runner at first, and nobody out. We're in the 8th. It's 7-3 Oakland. Puckett 1 for 3 today, a single off Bruce Walton his last time up. Lined and caught. Lansford in the right place again. The bottom part of the order, as Tim mentioned last inning, has done most of the damage today for Oakland. A combined 9 for 15, 4 runs and 4 runs batted in. Jose Canseco has had a tough weekend in the Twin Cities. 0 for 4 today, and Mike Bordick is having the best offensive day of his career. A career high 4 hits and 4 at-bats. Talk about Tony La Russa's managing of the bullpen, and here he is at it again with Honeycutt coming on for Oakland.
Jose Canseco has come in from right field and is now part of the bullpen. And he will go back to his position when Rick Honeycutt is ready, as you see Dennis Eckersley, who will probably pitch the 9th inning if Honeycutt can get the Athletics out of the 8th.
Honeycutt, the 4th pitcher of the day for Oakland, and we talk about Tony La Russa's knowledge of the statistics, how his hitters have done against opposing pitchers and vice versa. He brought Nelson in to face Puckett. Puckett was 7 for 33 lifetime prior to that at bat against Nelson. That's a .212 average. Admittedly, Puckett hit it hard, but La Russa got the out on the line drive to third. Now he brings Honeycutt in to face Herbeck. Herbeck 1 for 9. So it's not by accident Tony La Russa has all of those wins.
Yeah, that was kind of one of the points we were trying to make earlier. The managers now have access to those numbers. It used to be that managers would play hunches, and you'd have a hunch that this was right. Common sense would tell you that it was right, but now the numbers back it up.
Herbeck at the plate with 1 out. We're in the bottom of the 8th. Oakland has a 7-3 lead. The Twins have Donnie Hill at first. McGuire's playing behind him. Honeycutt's first pitch, a breaking ball for a strike. Well hit, base hit. The numbers sometimes lie.
Or at least are deceiving, right?
Tying run in the on-deck circle now. Hill at second, Herbeck at first. Still just 1 out. Brian Harper is over 3. Last time up, he had a line drive right at the third baseman, Carney Lansford. Pedro Munoz is on deck representing the tying run. And here comes Tony La Russa again. And he's going to go to Eckersley a bit earlier than he is accustomed to. Usually likes to go to him for just 1 inning. He'll look for 5 outs from Eck. As there is 1 out in the 8th inning. Oakland 7, Twins 3. Back in a moment. The 4th pitcher of the inning for Oakland is Dennis Eckersley.
188 major league saves. 100 complete games also as a starter. No other major league pitcher has ever amassed those 2 unusual numbers.
This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of Major League Baseball and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without the express written consent of Major League Baseball.
Actually, with the 5 saves that Eckersley has this year, 193 saves for his career. Traded to the Oakland Athletics for a song. And boy, has it sung a pretty tune for Tony La Russa and the Athletics, because you think about where the Athletics would have been without Dennis Eckersley over the last 5 years.
He candidly admits that he pulled his career back together toward the end of it when he pulled his life together. Had a problem with alcohol that he has battled successfully with the help of his wife. And he's on to face Brian Harper. Walton started the inning. Nelson, then Honeycutt, now Eckersley. They have each pitched a 1 batter. Harper up with 2 men on and 1 out. Donnie Hill, the lead runner at second. And at first, Ken Hrbek. It's 7-3 Oakland in the bottom of the 8th. To left center, Wilson and Henderson, and it's Henderson making the running catch.
If a ball is hit to left center field and it has any kind of hump on it at all, it's going to be caught with the speed of Ricky Henderson and the speed of Willie Wilson. Actually there, Henderson was playing Harper straight away and Wilson in center over toward right center. So there was a big gap out there, but those 2 guys could close it in a hurry, and they did.
So now 2 outs and 2 men on. And there will be a pinch hitter for Pedro Munoz as Randy Bush strides to the plate. Bush hitting .250 this year. No homers, 3 runs batted in. Bush, the most frequently used pinch hitter this season by Tom Kelly. This is his 5th pinch hit at bat. He's 1 for 4 and has driven in 2 runs in a pinch hitting capacity. Eckersley in with strike 1. Tom Kelly has access to numbers as well. Ball low and in. 1 ball and 1 strike. We talked at the top of the telecast that this might be the last hurrah for Oakland. They have 14 players in the final year of their contracts. Could be free agents at the end of the season. Dennis Eckersley is one of them. With a payroll of over $40 million, there is no doubt there will be some trimming in the offseason. Bush to right center. Canseco, a late start, but now he's there. And the Twins strand 2. They've now left 6. We've played 8 at the Metrodome. 7-3 Oakland. Randy Bush remains in the game for Minnesota as we go to the 9th. He came up as a pinch hitter for Munoz and takes his position in the field. And Tom Kelly also has a new pitcher on the mound. He is Rick Aguilera.
Aguilera usually the closer for the Twins, but even though they trail by 4 runs, Tom Kelly giving Aguilera some work. 42 saves last year in 51 opportunities, and 3 this year in 7 1/3 innings of work.
He follows Tapani, Kipper, and Guthrie. Guthrie worked 1 perfect inning with 2 strikeouts. Randy Reddy greets Aguilera. Middle third of the order, Reddy, McGuire, and Steinbach against Aguilera. Reddy delivers a hit into right center. Bush cuts it off. Reddy's now 1 for 2 since coming into the ball game as a pinch hitter for Harold Baines in the 6th inning. A couple of games on the menu next week. Most of you will see the New York Mets and the Atlanta Braves, while others will see the Texas Rangers and the Chicago White Sox. That's beginning at 1 o'clock Eastern time next Saturday on CBS. In the featured game, Bobby Bonilla leads the Mets in a battle against Deion Sanders, now 4th in the National League in hitting, and perhaps an Atlanta Brave to stay. That's next Saturday at 1. Mets and Braves, Rangers and White Sox on CBS Sports. Lance Blankenship on as a pinch runner for Randy Reddy. McGuire with a fly ball, and it falls in front of Randy Bush. Blankenship to third. Well, when you're hot, and you get those kind of breaks. Mark McGuire looped one to right. It looked like Bush would be able to play it, but it resulted in the 3rd hit of the game for McGuire.
Well, there is such an advantage when you're big and strong. One is that you can pop the ball out of the park. The other is that the outfielders have to play you so deep to respect the power that you get hits like that. Mark McGuire with his 3rd hit of the ball game.
Oakland with 17 hits now. That is a season high. It is also the most surrendered in a game this year by Minnesota pitching. Terry Steinbach has 3 of the hits, and he needs only a triple for the cycle. He has a single, a double, and a solo home run. 1 RBI and 2 runs scored for Steinbach, 3 for 4 today.
For a catcher, a triple is always the toughest hit to get for a cycle.
To right field. Should be deep enough to score the run. Bush the catch. Blankenship trots home. 8-3 Oakland. And another RBI for Steinbach. 2nd of the game, 2nd of the season. That would be the case, Jim, for some catchers, but not you. I remember reading last week that Tom Pagnosi's 9 stolen bases last year, the most for a Cardinal catcher since Tim McCarver.
That's a bunch, isn't it? 9 stolen bases. Yeah. Most catchers not swift of foot. And those that are, a guy like Craig Biggio of the Houston Astros, they make him a second baseman to utilize the speed.
Willie Wilson with 3 runs batted in today and 2 more hits. Willie has scored a run as well. Check swing, strike, says Jim Evans. Oh, and 2 the count. One of the bright spots for the Twins coming into today's game had been starting pitching. That was not a problem for the Twins in compiling a 7-9 record. Today, Kevin Tapani, if you're just joining us, had a rough outing. He allowed 6 earned runs in 3 2/3 innings, and the Twins haven't been able to catch up. That's to the backstop. McGuire to second on what will likely be scored a wild pitch.
Yeah, because Brian Harper wasn't able to catch up to that fastball that Aguilera throws. It almost looks as though Aguilera crossed him up. But without a runner being on second base, that's doubtful that that was the case. Usually if that happens, your catcher will go out and talk to the pitcher But that fastball just got away from Aguilera, and McGuire goes to second.
It is the first wild pitch thrown by Aguilera this season. One and two, the count on Wilson. I mentioned the starting pitching of the Minnesota Twins. They have two pitchers in their starting rotation who won 20 games last year. John Smiley did it for Pittsburgh. Scott Erickson did it for Minnesota. Neither one of them has won a game this year. They are each 0-2. Minnesota is 2-6. And they're 8 combined starts. It's not that they've pitched all that poorly. They haven't been getting much run support. Wilson beats it out. His third hit of the game. 18 hits now for Oakland. McGuire took third.
When a guy like Willie Wilson hits a ball and it bounces twice on the rug, and they are high bounces, it's almost impossible to get him. Gagne does the best he can, but Wilson is safe. Very close, but safe.
Willie with 1 stolen base today, giving him 3 for the season. First and third and 1 out for Jerry Brown. The pop-up handled by Leyes. And it has to be tough to be Jerry Brown. 0 for 5 when every other Oakland player who's come to the plate has reached base.
You can live with an 0 for 5 if your team scores 8 runs and gets 18 hits. You can't live with an 0 for 5 when you strand a lot of runners in a real close ball game. That's kind of the mentality you grow up with as a catcher, because catchers are trained from a defensive standpoint first, and then you worry about the offense. But of course, with the numbers that are so important in the game today, almost that is out the window now, because you have to have the offensive numbers to get the contracts that guys are getting now. And Brian Harper, an example of that. He's a hitter that catches as opposed to the other way around.
And now Mike Bordick with a chance to really have a memorable day for himself. He already has a career high 4 hits in this one with 3 singles and a double. He has driven in a run, scored 1, and stolen 2 bases.
Come on, Mike, get him home.
Bordick makes his home in Mechanic Falls, Maine, and played 3 years at the University of Maine at Orono. Amazing that Coach John Winkin has had such an excellent program there, given that they're in northern Maine. Or at least a good way up there in Maine. Chopped slowly to short, and Gagne throws him out. 1 run off Aguilera in the 9th. Oakland will take a 9-3, rather an 8-3 lead into the bottom of the 9th. And let's go to Bob Schaefer of CBS News now for an update on the earthquake in Northern California.
Thank you, Sean. We do have some more details. As we reported earlier, this one measured 7 on the Richter scale. It rocked Northern California. We're now told the epicenter is believed to have been out in the Pacific Ocean, about 35 miles southwest of Eureka, California. So far, we have reports of injuries and damage in 3 towns, Ferndale, Petrolia, and Rio Del. We want to get the latest now from Ron Allen, who's in our Los Angeles bureau. Ron?
Bob, that's what we've been hearing. At a hospital in Fortuna, we have reports of 14 people injured, broken bones, people hit by falling debris, cuts and bruises, things of that nature. In Ferndale, there are reports of some people being knocked to the ground in the downtown area when the quake hit, and there are some fires burning in that town. In Petrolia, there are some cracks in some roadways, some landslides, but again, we don't know how the extent of this. It's just scattered reports that are coming in initially. There's also a report from Petrolia of a gas or propane tank of some sort that apparently blew up. Again, lots of glass, lots of flying debris, but no fatalities. Like the quake earlier this week, felt widespread, but not a lot of serious damage or serious injuries. Bob?
All right, thank you, Ron, and we'll have more as details become available. Also a roundup on the evening news. Now let's go back to the ball game and Sean and Tim.
Thank you, Bob, and thanks to Ron Allen as well. 8-3 Oakland as the Twins get ready for their last opportunity against Dennis Eckersley. Larkin, Leyes, and Gagne coming up. They provided most of the Minnesota offense today. The Twins have just 6 hits. As soon as this one is over, we'll be sending you to Greensboro for the Kmart Greater Greensboro Open. Eckersley, the 5th pitcher of the day for Oakland. Joe Slusarski worked the first 5. Bruce Walton 2 innings plus. Then it was indeed bullpen by committee for Oakland. Gene Nelson faced 1 batter and retired him. Rick Honeycutt faced 1 hitter and allowed a hit to Herbeck. And Eckersley has faced 2 batters and retired them both. And the prospects of a 5-run deficit with Mr. Eckersley on the mound sent many of the 34,000 plus here toward the exits a bit early and out into a very cold Minnesota day. As we mentioned earlier, there were a few snowflakes in the area last night. Gene Larkin 1 for 3, a home run, his 3rd of the year in the 5th inning. That came off Slusarski. Well hit, fair ball past the lunge of McGuire into the corner. Played by Canseco. Larkin has a double. He's 2 for 4.
Talk to all the Twins players, and they talk about Gene Larkin hitting the ball very hard at people, filling in for Ken Herbeck, that he just can't find a hole. He almost makes his own hole with that ball. That was a low tracer by Mark McGuire.
Now Leyes. 2 for 3 is Scott. A solo home run and an RBI single. Ball 1 low and away. One ball and 1 strike on Scott Leyes. Like many players around Major League Baseball, Scott Leyes worked hard in the weight room this past offseason. He gained 15 pounds. Scott says one of his problems is that he has a difficult time in relaxing, knowing when to just get a... Here's Bob Casey. I was telling Tim last night about Bob Casey sitting in that perch, and we showed you the PA announcer here at the Metrodome earlier. No matter how long he sits in that cage behind home plate, he gets rattled when those foul balls come right back. And I've noticed that in the past. I asked Case last night, how come you jump? You've been back there all those years. He said, because sometimes that plexiglass breaks. Right, Case? Watch the reaction of the legendary Pelican.
There's Bob right there in your picture.
Whoa!
I can attest to the fact that you blink when balls come back that quickly.
Well, 1-2 on Leyes. What a nice man Bob Casey is, too. Very entertaining over the public address system here, and as nice a guy as you'd want to meet. Leyes hanging alive. Casey ducking out of the way. Still 1 ball and 2 strikes. 8-3 Oakland. We're in the bottom of the 9th. Gene Larkin at second with nobody out. He tried to check his swing and could not. Leyes strikes out for the first out of the 9th, and the first strikeout this afternoon for Dennis Eckersley. The coordinating producer of Major League Baseball on CBS is Rick LaCivita. Today's telecast was directed by Joe Assetti. The senior producer of CBS Sports is Ed Gorn, and the executive producer of CBS Sports is Ted Shaker. And the pinch hitter is Chili Davis, batting for Greg Gagne. Chili off to a slow start in 1992. He's hitting just .224. He's only driven in 1 run. That came by a sacrifice fly.
Well, one thing you notice is Eckersley's not working as quickly as he usually does. As a matter of fact, I heard a story the last couple of weeks about Dennis Eckersley and the famous home run that he threw to Kirk Gibson, pinch hitting in the opening game of the 1988 series. But he is much more deliberate with his delivery than I've seen him in years.
That's up the middle, base hit past Brown. Larkin around to score, and don't go away just yet. It's 8-4.
So Chili Davis driving in a rare earned run against Dennis Eckersley. The story that I heard was that Eckersley working so fast, Ron Hassey behind the plate, and giving the sign, the 3-2 slider. He went to his stretch so quickly, he didn't want to throw the slider, and as his left foot came up, he was thinking to himself, better to throw it than to balk. I had never heard that story before. But that's one of the disadvantages of working quickly. Sometimes when that pitch is flashed down, you go into your stretch, you throw too quickly without thinking about another pitch.
Oh, and 2 the count on Shane Mack. Shane today 0 for 4. The run scored in this inning by Minnesota, the first run off Dennis Eckersley this year in 9 innings pitched. Big swing and strike 3. The Twins are down to their final out. 2 strikeouts in the inning for Eckersley.
I couldn't remember who had told me that, but it was Jim Lefebvre last week, the manager of the Chicago Cubs. Jim was the hitting instructor for the Athletics during the 1988 season. Then he went to the Mariners and now with the Cubs. But he told both of us that story in the Chicago Cub locker room at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. Never heard that story.
Nor had I. Donnie Hill 1 for 4, did check his swing. 1 ball on Hill. His one hit a single his last time up. That was last inning. It knocked Bruce Walton out of the ball game. 1 ball and 1 strike the count. Oakland on the verge of victory, leading 8-4 with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th. To remind you that golf is next on CBS. The Kmart Greater Greensboro Open. At the last report, a 5-way tie for the lead there. McGuire to Eckersley, and Oakland has evened this series at 1 win apiece. The final score, Oakland 8 and Minnesota 4. The Chevrolet player of the game is Oakland's shortstop Mike Bordick. He was 4 for 5 today with 3 singles and a double. He drove in a run, scored 1, and stole 2 bases. Chevrolet will donate $1,000 in his name to the Special Olympics.
CBS Sports presents Major League Baseball. Today's game is brought to you by Toyota, reminding you to always buckle up. Do it for those who love you. Little Caesars Pizza, where you always get 2 great pizzas for 1 low price. And by Head & Shoulders, because you never get a second chance to make a first impression.
Now for Tim McCarver, I'm Sean McDonough saying so long from the Metrodome in Minneapolis. The final score, Oakland 8 and Minnesota 4. been watching Major League Baseball on CBS Sports, home of the biggest games in baseball, the All-Star Game, the League Championship Series, and the World Series.